And I suppose the next thing that we're going to talk about is the driver standards, basically, because there was a ton of crashes, especially in that first corner. And if you're going to eliminate a driver on the first lap, and if they've been completely shunted through no fault of their own and fall to the back, you're eliminated on the first lap, and you're going to get extremely frustrated. That's, most gamers would be extremely frustrated if you were completely shunted out of the first corner and then eliminated on the first lap after having a decent qualifying session. So I think that's quite harsh. But they're talking about, obviously, it was a reduced damage, so they were running at 25% damage, and they're talking now of putting up to 100% damage. Now, Jack, I think that's a really silly idea. Now, the contrast is that they put it on to 100% damage, that, they should drive better, because they know if they touch someone, their car is going to get damaged. But it's a sim racing event. These tracks are extremely tight, especially Monaco. That's why we saw that first lap one shunt, everyone flying everywhere, basically, because it's so narrow, that strip down towards the Nouvelle Chicane hairpin as we were using. But if you've got it on 100% damage, you could have wiped out 6 cars, and then you've got an elimination process, but you're not using it.
Yeah, no. Had they had it on 100%, there would have been no need for the elimination format whatsoever. But yeah, I think sending up to 100%, it's not the correct thing to do right now. However, yes, they do need to up it. I think maybe up to like 56. I'm not sure if it has to be like a certain percentage, but if they up it to like maybe 50, 60, and then by round 3, 75%, and so then it means that they are being a lot more careful, because it means that they can still pick up damage, but it also does mean that we're not gonna have that we're not only gonna have 10 cars by lap 1, eliminating the idea of the elimination format. So yeah.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, because if you got imagine just having all those crashes at the beginning, and the thing is, Formula E tracks are tight, and even in a sim world, they're tight. Like, I've driven some of them, anyone can go and drive them. We're racing in Hong Kong next week, so you've got that hairpin at turn 1. Obviously, it's a short run, but there's a chance there. Then you've got turn 3, again, a really tight 90-degree right-hander, and that's going to be extremely tight, and there's going to be the potential to wipe Will half the grid out by the time we get to turn 3.
Yeah, I think Jack's right in saying that, maybe up the damage a bit, but I think 100% would be a little bit of a risk. But I definitely think something needs to be done about driving standards, just because it kind of ruins the spectacle a little bit. I mean, Jean-Eric Vergne in particular was being incredibly rude, especially coming around the Nouvelle Chicane hairpin a couple of times, which was great to some extent. But then you look at like the kind of first lap crashes, and it looks silly. Cars kind of climbing on top of each other and then just keep going. So I'd like to see a bit more damage, just to make the drivers think about their driving a bit more, just be a bit more careful, and just mean it's not just silly in the way they're going about it. It's not a proper race. And going back to the elimination point, I was talking about this with a friend, saying that, to get that kind of large number of people on the grid, there must be some kind of, I'm not sure how the contracts work, but there must be some kind of, the teams pressurising the drivers at least to be involved. And I do think that, if you're making drivers take quite a lot of time out of their schedule to play and to be involved in the event, I think that, just then seeing them eliminated after 50 seconds of racing is kind of a bit, perhaps a little bit annoying for them. They've taken quite a lot of time out, and then they get to do one lap and then they're out.
Yeah, I suppose, and things like sponsors will probably be unhappy that, the cars, obviously the sponsors are on the car, but you're still representing those brands even though you're racing for that team. So they might not be happy that, their driver's technically been eliminated after one lap, which is a bit of annoying. And also, I suppose with Formula E tracks, and it's the same in normal Formula E racing, it's extremely hard to overtake. And we were racing in Monaco, where in every Formula E race we've had so far, there has been hardly any overtaking. So for drivers in an elimination process, they are going to have to sort of bump and barge and try and, move their way through the field that way, rather than actually, a clean overtake as such. So upping the damage is going to completely prevent any sort of racing, Jack.
That is a possibility. However, that's why we've said kind of don't go all the way with the damage. Just leave it like 50-60. Maybe do maybe do another privatized test session with I think initially they were only planning 14 drivers to take part on Saturday, and then 21 turned up, and then they decided because 21's turned up, we'll add Jan Mardenborough, Nick Cassidy, and Sam de Jong. I think maybe do another test run behind like closed doors, so like no one sees it, and see how that goes if they up the damage, and then hopefully everything runs smoothly by Hong Kong this weekend.
I suppose, like what Formula One drivers have been doing, you've seen like the likes of Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Will. They've all been racing the F1 2019 game, and maybe the FE drivers like Van Dorn, people who are on the sims quite regularly, they could go test it out, maybe test it at 100% damage, and then report back to Formula E just to say, look, it wouldn't really work. It wouldn't make it fun. You're going to lose a lot of drivers, and maybe express their concerns, and maybe Formula E then won't say, let's not race at 100% damage just yet.
Yeah, there's a definitely a balance to be had. You're right in saying, we don't want it to the point where the drivers are just kind of going in a long line because they're too scared that if they try and move for an overtake, they're just going to damage their car. But at the same time, you don't want them climbing on top of each other and just kind of like knocking each other out of the way in order to gain positions. I think you can have a similar debate with the track limits and the Formula One esports event, where they were just taking liberties. I think it was at turn 10 and then on the final turn as well, and it just looks silly. They're deliberately going beyond the track limits in order to gain speed, but it's not how you're supposed to race that track, and it's not proper driving. So I think there is a balance to be had, because we want to see a pretty realistic kind of simulation of what happens on a real racetrack. And I think that if you're allowed to just barge up the inside of someone and know that you're not going to lose your front wing or damage your bodywork or get a flat tire, then that's not a realistic simulation. Obviously, it is a slightly different discipline, but I think that those kind of basic rules of motorsport should still apply.